Home for me is right here. Raab is my island and this is my sea. I belong here. When I left Germany many years ago, I wasn't planning to live abroad permanently, but over the years, that's just how things turned out.
For me, home is near the sea. I was born on the coast, and being close to the sea has always been very important to me. Although the German city of Münster, where I live, isn't directly on the coast, it only takes me 2 hours to drive to the North Sea, or 3 hours to the Baltic Sea. As soon as my feet touch the sand, I feel reconnected with the Adriatic, where I grew up.
Perhaps the most direct connection you can have with the Adriatic is diving in it. In his adopted home of Croatia, Andreas Kron has turned his hobby into his job.
No dive is ever the same. You're always experiencing new things, and I still find that even after 25 years, I'm still discovering things I've never seen before.
It was more than 2 decades ago that Andreas Kron resigned from his job in Munich and founded a diving school on the island of Raab. The locals make him feel very welcome. But working with the Croatian administration proved more of a challenge as he struggled to fill out official forms.
I had to learn the language eventually. It wasn't that important at first because I was working with tourists, mostly German speakers, so I didn't really need the language. But when I bought a plot of land, built a house, and a diving school, the problems began. Suddenly I had workers who didn't speak German or English.
Language is the bread and butter of writer and translator Alida Bremer, who works in both German and Croatian. Her childhood in Croatia and her life in Germany are her main sources of inspiration.
I took a lot with me from Croatia, especially the seascapes and anything to do with the sea, even historical things. And at the same time, my knowledge continued to grow here in Germany. For me, Germany was a country of education. I came here to further my studies and just happened to stay.
Alida's books draw on her family history and Croatian history, but she writes them in German. She has been living in Germany for 28 years. Nowadays, she feels just as comfortable in Münster as she did in Split, her hometown. But it took a while for her to get used to the Germans' reserved manner.
I thought that it was just something to do with me. Later I heard that many other foreigners thought the same at the start because they thought that the Germans weren't communicating with them very much. So it must be something about them. And eventually one German friend said, no, we are exactly the same with each other. And then, well, then it clicked that they just aren't as affectionate as us Southerners, even amongst themselves.
A Mediterranean way of life is the norm on the Croatian island of Raab. Andreas Kron's wife is Croatian, and the couple have 3 children. They are growing up with both cultures. Kron says there's little he misses about Germany.
Well, maybe I do miss whole grain bread and rye bread a little. A Bavarian pretzel and sausage 4 times a year goes down well too.
I always bring this oil back from Croatia. I bring a great big bottle and decant it into here. In one of my novels, I write about an olive grove. My mother comes from an area where olives are grown, and that's where this is from. I don't really like any other oils, so it has to be this one.
In the kitchen, Alida likes to remain a fully fledged Croatian. In everyday family life, however, she does experience the odd cultural clash. Her Mediterranean zest for life can infringe on her husband's German sense of order.
This over-organization can get quite annoying, always arranging everything ahead of time, living life based on a calendar and planning the day to the minute. But it does have its advantages. It is more effective. And it is often the case that my husband finishes work at 5 or 6, and I manage to drag my work out until 10 in the evening.
There are many things that Alida Bremer appreciates about her adopted home. But there is one thing that she just can't get used to.
I get the feeling that many Germans like to give out instructions or advice and have the mentality that they know better. For example, when you ride your bike in Münster and you're completely alone on the road with no traffic around, and you decide to take a quick shortcut by cutting a corner, someone elderly will pop up out of nowhere or shout out of a window and tell you you're doing something wrong.
The Croatians have their faults too. They could really improve their attitude toward work. They're missing a bit of the German mindset, a bit of discipline. It's really lacking here, and it annoys me.
Andreas Kron considers the island of Raab his home. He now only comes to Germany as a visitor.
I'm still a German national, and I have an indefinite residence permit. But if you're an EU resident, I don't think it really matters which passport you have, because everyone is considered equal within the EU.
My identity is my whole life story. It's more than just nationality or where you happen to be born. But when I think about it now, linguistically, I effectively have dual nationality. I couldn't leave one without missing the other. So I think that somehow both belong to me.
Water, waves, and wind. Sometimes it doesn't matter if that's in the middle of a city like Münster next to the lake, or in Croatia, on the island of Raab, with a view over the Adriatic.